Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be talking about the newest champion coming to League, Senna. So, as always, if you enjoy the content, be sure to like and subscribe. Check out the rest of the content on the channel as well. I do tier lists, coaching sessions, guides, and all kinds of other things. And then we also stream every night starting around 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Been getting a ton of people out there lately, so come by, check it out. Super friendly, very chill community. I try to talk as much as I can with the stream while I'm playing, so it's a great time. Come by, check that out. Okay, so let's go ahead and get in here. So usual disclaimers, the champion in these numbers just came out yesterday, so this very well could change. She's still on the PBE right now, so if you're watching this in the future, stuff might have changed. But I know people want to know, what about her and start theory crafting her and all that kind of stuff out there. And there's just not a lot of great information out there yet. Most of the YouTube videos are just all caps types of videos of people that really don't know what they're doing and they aren't theory crafting. They're just all capsing and running around on the PBE, stomping people. So I'm going to try to give you the real scoop here, give you some real stuff to theory craft, real stuff to think about. Although I will say I have not personally played her yet because it's almost impossible to get her unless you have a pre-made on the PBE right now. But let's go ahead and get in here, and just based on what I've seen, based on what I've theory crafted, this is what I've come up with so far that might be kind of the best runes, the best items, and the best playstyle for her. Let's go ahead and start just talking about who she is and what she does and how her stats work. Now, we've known about her abilities for a little bit, but we didn't have exact numbers, and we still don't have all of the numbers, but we have quite a few of them, enough, I think, to get a picture and to start making some speculations about what might be optimal with her. And I get asked about this a lot on the stream, obviously, because it's a new champion. But we finally do have these numbers, so let's just run through them real quick. So, her base health, okay, pretty good. Normal marksman range, 520 to start. Now, something that a lot of people have not mentioned, and I'm not sure if this is some kind of typo, but this also showed up on the surrender at 20 post. I double-checked it just to say, whoa, are you sure that's accurate? It looks like it's accurate. 0.7 health regen. Now, from what I understand, that is 0.7 per 5. Because if we go and we look at like other, because I was like, wait a minute, is that 0.7 per second? And then it goes up to 10? Or is that like 0.7 total? And based on like other champions, if we click on someone like Jana here, it's formatted to be this is how much she gets over 5 seconds, not every second. So every other champion on the wiki right now is formatted to where this is what you get per 5, not per second. So if she only gets 0.7 per 5 seconds, I mean, that's basically like 0 regen on her health. Now, once again, like I said, I'm not sure if that is, 100% accurate, but that's what this says right here. It says it on surrender at 20. That's what it says on the wiki. So that would be extremely low health regen. Now, they might do that because she does have a heal in her kit with Piercing Darkness. There are other champions that also have heals that do not have it that low. So, I don't know, but that is something to keep in mind that's important in terms of your itemization, especially when it comes to mana regen, which we'll talk about here in a second. If it actually is that low, which, I mean, if this were on a per 5 basis, that would give her 12 mana per 5. So I don't think it is on a per 5, but if this is like every second, and we expanded it out to a per 5. So I really think this might actually be her regen, and that's just part of her kit, part of who she is that she has virtually no regen. So if you take trades that are bad, you're going to be hurting, unless you have lifesteal, or unless you're healing up a lot. You're going to be hurting, and you're going to be out of mana a lot, because there's nothing in her kit that refunds anything with your mana. And so your mana is going to be really bad. And that also means regen items like Fairy Charms are extremely bad on her, because Fairy Charms give you a percentage of your regen. So Fairy Charms, 25% of your regen. If your regen's only like 2 or 3, then it's going to give you no value, versus someone, like Jana, who's going to start off around 12 mana regen, then she's going to be getting 3 total regen per 5, which is going to be a lot better. So, anyways, this is really, so it's going to make anything with Fairy Charms or Reju Beads is going to be trash on her, or you're going to be paying a very, very heavy cost. So, you need to calculate that. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, she does have pretty good flat mana, though. So she has 350 flat and then up to 1115, which I think is quite a lot, flat mana. So that's good. She has huge range. Now, I was wondering if that was accurate, but people are telling me that's accurate. That's what it looks like from the footage. 600 range is massive. So that's like, I think, a little under Ashe, under Caitlyn, but under everybody, or in respect to everybody else, it's a lot. And she gets bonus range, which we'll talk about here in a second with her passive. But that's really good that she has huge range. Now, her attack damage is another thing that's a little unusual. It's 63 base, which is okay. But she gets no attack damage per level. 0 per level. Okay, so it's based on her passive, which once again we'll hit on in a second. But this is important to keep in mind. Now, this means that Sheen items are probably going to be pretty bad on her because Sheen is based on your base attack damage, and your base attack damage never goes up. You just get bonus attack damage based on these things, but that does not affect your base attack damage, okay? So Sheen is probably going to be pretty bad. So like Lichbane, Trinity Force, Iceborne Gauntlet, all of that stuff is probably not happening. Now, Sheen does have an interesting interaction with Piercing Light. Piercing Light actually can trigger Sheen because it triggers on-hit effects. So like maybe Lichbane could be worth if you think you're going to be able to trigger it with Piercing Darkness later on. We'll talk about that in a minute. So that's a really powerful interaction. Most abilities do not trigger on hit, with the exception of like Ezreal's Q. Most sort of ranged abilities don't trigger on hits. Like Ezreal Q, like Misfortune Q. There's a handful of things, but it's rare. Unfortunately, she's just not going to have a lot of base damage to go with it. So Sheen items, probably not a good idea. And then attack speed is pretty high. I mean, 68... If you have 68 attack speed and 600 range, that's really, really high. And then you get 0 to 42% extra attack speed. So her attack speed's actually quite high. And then the armor is 28, which is okay. Magic resist is pretty standard. So not a lot to see there. 330 move speed. So the main things to keep in mind is that her regen is terrible. She has really high range, and her base attack damage is very low and doesn't go up. Okay, so her passives. This does like a million different things. When she attacks somebody, then she puts a debuff on them, mist, for 4 seconds. So the first attack, it just puts the debuff on them. If you attack them after that, then it deals them a certain percentage of their current health. And it actually scales up pretty quickly. So it looks like this over time, but all of this stuff scales up to around level 11, not level 18. So that means that she actually can scale pretty well with a lot of her things, even as a support or even as a bot laner, because it caps out at 11 instead of 18. So even in early levels, like doing 5% of somebody's current health, if they're sitting around max health, it's going to be pretty good. It's going to be like 50 to 75 extra damage on there, depending on, you know, how much health they have. So that's pretty good, and especially because you can target it on the same person every 4 seconds is nice. Now that's on target cooldowns. This means you can actually apply it to multiple targets in a team fight or just trading in the lane, and it just goes on cooldown for the same person for 4 seconds, which is really short. So if you're getting a lot of good harass moments in there, you can probably trigger this fairly often. So that's pretty nice. And then it also collects a mist, which is like a stacking mechanic, similar to like Bard's Chimes. I think it's the best example of it. It looks like Thresh's Souls. You have to actually auto-attack them when they're on the ground. Like, they can fall out whenever certain minions die or whenever you get kills and assists. So you can collect them like that, and then if you trigger it off of this auto-attack, you also collect it. So you collect these Wraiths, and I believe each one of them is still just going to give you one. And you have a 20% for small minions, and monsters also have a 20% chance to spawn. So once again, very, very similar to Thresh's Souls. You just auto-attack them instead of walking near them, and it counts. The only difference is that you can also auto-attack people to collect them every now and then. And it's a similar mechanic to Thresh too, to where Thresh gets no armor per level, but he gets armor off of his souls. In this one, you get no attack damage per level, but you get attack damage off of souls. Okay, so each stack of mist gives you 1 bonus attack damage, and then every 20 stacks, you also gain 25 bonus range and 15% critical chance. Now, that's obviously going to be really good. So, especially because you're going to be getting more of these than you will Thresh Souls. because you can get them off of auto attacks as well. So, just thinking, my games with Thresh typically, an average game might be 60 to 80 souls, a 25-minute game, 30-minute game, something like that. So if you can get auto attacks too, by the end of a lot of games, you can probably get up to 100, which would give you 100 bonus range and 60% crit strike near the end of the game. And in like the mid game, you'll probably get maybe half of that. So even, getting up to 650 range and 30% extra crit can be really good. Now, if you do go over 100% crit, then you convert the excess crit that you have, over to 35% lifesteal, which is okay. That's not a very good conversion in terms of money-wise, because critical strike is worth 40 gold per point, and I think lifesteal is also worth somewhere around 35 to 40. So it's not a viable strategy to try to go really hard over the crit to get some extra bonuses. You're losing gold value, but at least it's not 100% wasted, so that's good. And then the Spell Thief gives you Adaptive Force, the new Spell Thief, so that's fine. Okay, also part of your passive, Relic Cannon. So Senna does not gain attack damage growth per level. Okay, we've said that several times. Her basic attacks fire after a such and such delay. Now, this is one thing that's difficult to quantify, where you just kind of have to play the champion and get a feel for that. But it seems like she gets an extra delay before she attacks, based on her bonus attack speed. Now, that is... I think that's also... I think this is just always working, basically. So this is like every auto attack does this, kind of almost like Jin or something. So I don't know how that feels or what that means with the delay. It looked like it was fairly fluid, and I don't know how this differs from just normal attack speed animations. So once again, I don't have good numbers for you here. But basically, attack speed is good. And then her this is important here. Her critical strikes only deal 30% bonus AD to the target with a 16.25 modifier instead of a plus 25% crit modifier. So that means with a normal critical strike without Infinity Edge, if you hit somebody for 100, you would actually hit them for 200. With her, you would only hit them for 130. So the stat critical strike is not as good on her as it is on other champions. Now, they do that partially because you do get some free crit, but nevertheless, that means that if you're purchasing critical strike, then you're losing out on 70% of its gold value, really, because you're only getting a 30% bonus instead of a 100% bonus. So you're paying like 40 gold to buy like 10 gold or so worth of value. So critical strike is going to be overcosted. So that's going to make her itemization very tricky, which we'll talk about here in a second. But her basic attacks do 20% bonus AD physical damage. So that means that you're going to have bigger hits, so your crit is for less, but your base damage is higher. It still doesn't make up for the fact that the crit is lower, but you do get some of that value back. So now instead of hitting for 100 and doing 100% extra damage, you're hitting for 120 and doing 30% extra damage. So, that's probably going to take you up to like 150 or 160 damage. So that means this is a lot closer to doing like 50% after you factor in that, maybe a little bit more. So it makes it really weird with itemization. So you do want raw AD. That's going to be your best stat because you get 20% extra per attack. And you also get 10 to 20% of her bonus, or of the target's bonus movement speed for 0.5 seconds. Now, I'm not sure if that's their total movement speed or only movement speed they have that's a bonus. So just the target's movement speed, and you get it as bonus movement speed. Gotcha. So if their base movement speed's like 330, you're going to gain an extra, 33 movement speed for 0.5 seconds. So it's like a little fleet footwork proc every time you auto attack, pretty much. So that's going to make it a lot easier to try to run people down and crit with her. So keep that in mind as well. And she's going to have a decent amount of mobility for kiting whenever you do that. Okay, so how do we take all this in? This is all really weird. So basically, critical strike, not as strong. Bonus attack speed, very good. Regular attack speed seems to be pretty good. Okay. You do also get a lot of bonus attack damage every time you stack souls. So yes, you are getting less value on the critical strike, but you should have a lot of bonus attack damage over time between the bonuses that you get here and the extra bonuses that you get here. Okay. So her abilities, Piercing Darkness. So this is very similar to Lucian's Piercing Light, but it has a massive range. So it starts, I believe, at her attack range. So at 600, you can attack people, and that's not affected by rapid fire cannon. So it says it right there. Even if your rapid fire cannon's going on, you can't target somebody that's like 800 range away. Okay? And then the effect radius is 1300, though. So what this means is if someone's 600 away, you can target them with this ability, but it's still going to shoot for 1300. So it'll hit everything for 1300 that's in a line. So it's a really weird mechanic, kind of like Lucian, where it fires much further than the target that you, within the target range. Now this one's way further than Lucian's is, though. Lucian's is pretty far, but this one's even further. So this is like kind of like a Lucian's Q on steroids here. I believe it probably does less damage. I didn't bring up like a comparison here. But it fires a big laser and it heals. It heals allies, any allies that you hit, including yourself. So you heal yourself, and if you fire through your ADC, you heal them as well, and anyone else you also heal. And it does physical damage to everything else. You can actually target wards and towers with this as well, but it doesn't do any damage to them. And it's worth noting it does apply those on-hit effects that we mentioned before. So that is lifesteal. Now that's only champions where that is applying to. It says enemy champions take on-hit effects. So the on-hits do not affect minions, I don't believe. So I don't think you lifesteal off of minions with this. But it does do physical damage, and physical damage stuff does lifesteal, I believe. So it might still lifesteal, but it's not going to apply Sheen procs to all of the minions. Although, if you did hit multiple enemy champions at the same time with this ability, I think if you hit like 3 people and you have Lich Bane, I think it would Lich Bane all of them. Although I'm not 100%, because this is a new thing. I don't believe there are any other AoE abilities that also apply on hit, with the exception of like Twitch's R. And Twitch's R, I don't know, no one ever builds like Lich Bane or something on Twitch, so who knows. But it would apply things like Blade of the Ruined King to multiple targets if you have that going on. So it can apply on-hit effects, and every time you auto-attack. Now, this is not just auto-attacking champions. This is auto-attacking anything, including the minion wave. It lowers the cooldown on this. So the cooldown looks like it's 15 seconds, but if you're pushing up, if you're just constantly auto-attacking the minion wave or attacking champions, the cooldown's probably going to be closer to like 8 seconds or so. Not including CDR. So if you end up getting like, I don't know, 20% CDR on whatever, then it would start at 12 seconds and then work its way down to probably like 6 seconds before you can do it again. So the physical damage is okay, you know, it's 50 to 170, so that's not insane. But keep in mind there is no drop off for multiple targets either. It does the full damage to every single target. So that's still going to be pretty good wave clear. And then the healing is 40 to 120. Now, I'll be honest, this looks like really low to start with, but you have to keep in mind that if you hit an ally with it, it's healing 2 people, including you. So if you look at it that way, then it's like a 220 base when you max it out with a 0.5 AP and a 0.8 AD. So it scales with 8 bonus AD and AP. Now, keep in mind, you get bonus AD off of your souls. So even if you're not itemizing into it very heavily, if you have like, you know, 100 souls at the end of the game, it's still adding on an extra 40 healing. So that's why the base number looks really low, is because you can scale into it with your passive. So it's pretty sweet. And then Last Embrace, long range, 1150. The particle speed looks pretty fast too. Like, it's definitely faster than Morgana. I don't know what it would be. It's definitely faster than like Zyra's E. So looks like you could definitely hit people with it for sure. It's fairly cheap. This is what you're gonna max second, I believe. I'm pretty sure you'll max Piercing Darkness first on both support and ADC, and then Last Embrace I think is second, because you get pretty good value. The cooldown's the same at every rank, which kind of sucks, But you do go from 1.5 seconds roots to 2.25 second root. That is a massive, massive root. It's not quite like Morgana level, but it's more than Lux. So keep that in mind, that it's a big, big root once you max that out. And you get quite a good amount of value off of the physical damage as well. And it's got a 0.7 ratio, so it's pretty good. So basically, you hit somebody with it after 1 second, then it roots them. And it can potentially hit multiple targets as well. And it creates a circle around them, almost like a Varus type of tendril thing. Not exactly the same, but it creates a circle around them. And if other people are close, then it will also root them. So the initial hit does not apply this to multiple people. It sticks to the first enemy hit. That can be minions as well. But whenever it ends, then it can root multiple people. And if you kill somebody, if you kill like a minion or something, then it'll root instantly. So if someone's standing next to a minion that's going to die and you hit it with Last Embrace, it will blow up and root the person automatically that's right next to him. So it's an interesting mechanic. It's pretty good. Gives her a nice little piece of CC. So that's good stuff. Now, Curse of the Black Mist. This is going to be the most controversial aspect of her kit, and we can watch a video for that one here in a second. These are pretty self-explanatory. I don't think, you can watch videos if you want to watch how those work, but it's pretty straightforward on that. I guess we could have watched those, but whatever. We'll just skip up and go to the Curse of the Mist here. Most people probably watched it who are watching this video. But she dissolves into a cloud for a certain duration, and then she becomes a wraith, and she camouflages herself for a few seconds. Allied champions are also camouflaged and turned into wraiths. So basically, she becomes untargetable. You can still hit her with skill shots, but it's almost like an Akali cloud type of thing. She becomes untargetable, and anyone else that steps in there also becomes untargetable and unrecognizable. So when they step out of the mist, then people aren't going to know like who they are. So if you have multiple people in there and they all like start popping out of the mist, then you're not going to know who's who when they come out. So they're disguised, almost like a Nico kind of disguise. Except they don't look like other champions. They just look like a generic ghoul. So they're disguised, and they're camouflaged, and they're obscured, so they can't actually be targeted. So you can't click on them with like a Malzahar ult or any other ability. You can only throw skill shots at them that don't require a target. So that's huge. And the range on it that you'll see when we look at this is pretty far. Like, you have to be right up in their face to get them to reveal, to see who they are. So, anyways, this is going to be super strong. And this is going to be the last thing that you max. You just get a little bit of CDR on it, which is okay. And then the stealth duration goes up a little bit. But by and large, I still think this is going to be the last thing that you max. But let's check it out. We'll watch it really quickly here if it's going to... Is it going to load up? Maybe we can watch it. Okay. Maybe we won't watch it. I don't know why it's not loading up. I could have sworn it was loading up earlier. Is it just getting... Is it... Oh, here we go. Okay. Okay, so you'll notice right here, it also gives movement speed, 20% movement speed. Now, I'm not... It says for a few seconds, so I'm not sure how long they get the movement speed. But you'll notice that they do get the movement speed. So she gets it, and he gets it if he runs through it. So then this is what it looks like from the Thresh's point of view. Person disappears, and they pop out looking like a wraith, so you don't know who it is. And then she stays there. Now, she can move while that's going on, too. And you notice that even when he's standing this close... Like, look at that. That's probably like 400 units away or something, and he still looks like a wraith, so you still don't know who this is. In theory, and you still can't target him with anything. Even though it's that close. That's like maybe 500 units away. So, you have to get really, really close to him to see, so a lot of times they're going to hit you first. Now, I don't know if... Well, let's watch some more of this, and I'll say, but I don't know if you're channeling an ability, if they can see that or not, or like what that even means. So if you're like, you know, Fiddlesticks channeling an ult, I don't know if it breaks that or not. Or if you're a like a Nico channeling an ult. Obviously, if you're dealing damage to them, like a Katarina or something, that reveals you. But if it's something that's not damaging them, or you're channeling something, I don't know if they would see that. So that's interesting. We'll have to see. And then this is, okay, now look, this is another thing. Where she can shoot out of this, and it reveals her for a second. But then, after another moment, she goes back into the mist. So she can shoot and then chill for a second and turn back into the mist. Now you can still hit her with skill shots like that, but it does not reveal it. Now right here, see, they become untargetable, so Zen can't, like, go on them to try to kill them here. And they both get that bonus movement speed. So, I think this is going to create a lot of balance problems, and if she's OP on release, I'm pretty sure this is why. Because that's AoE, you can do it to everybody. I mean, just the fact that people can be cloaked, and you give them 20% bonus movement speed, including you, it's like a little mini Shirelias, is pretty ridiculous. That in and of itself is really good. The fact that those people also cannot be targeted or identified is crazy. I mean, just think, like, if she starts a team fight like this, and just comes in running up on the enemy, and she's got, like, all of her team stacked up in this thing, you can't hit them or interact with them in any way while they're rolling up, and then, like, once they come out of that mist until they hit you, then you can't see, like, who they are or what's going on. You could have the tank come running out first. You know, you could have the assassin running out first. To try to get on the back line. It's just going to create so much confusion and power. And then, you know, anyone that's using something where they benefit from that, like Dustblade or what is it, the stealth thing? I think I had the runes up here. Actually, the stealth rune, I forgot that. Is Cheap Shot? It's sudden impact. Yeah, if they have sudden impact or anything like that, they'll benefit. So, I don't know. It's going to create a lot of problems, I think. So we'll see how it goes. But anyways, very, very strong. But you only want 1 point in it because you don't get that much value out of it for multiple points. So you still want to max Q, then W, then E. Really strong. And then her final one, she fires this big shot across the board. And it looks like it moves pretty quickly. Yeah, speed is 2,000. So pretty fast. It's got a long cooldown, 160 seconds, so you can't do it all the time, but it can go global. And it does a pretty good chunk of damage. It's got 100% of your total AD, not just bonus AD, but total, so it includes your original 60. So right there, it's basically 300 damage, and then plus 100% of your bonus AD. And then it also has an AP ratio. And then the shield part only benefits from your AP, but it also has a thing for 1.5 per mist collected. So if you have 50 mists, it would be plus 75 shield, which would be pretty good. Now, I don't think that includes the bonus shield either. Oh, okay, never mind. The shield is always the same for 3 seconds. I thought you got a bonus shield if it does... Maybe they changed it. I thought it said you get a bonus shield if they're in the middle. And then there's like a standard shield if you're not. But let's look at the video real quick and I'll show you. Oh, we got to full screen it. Because for some reason we can't do it on a smaller screen. Okay. So look at that hitbox. Hold up. Look at this hitbox. Look at that. I believe all of that is eligible for a shield. So your entire team is getting this shield in a team fight, including you. You can't miss that. And then the center section is where you do your damage. So anyone that's in the center section, which is like a bit wider than a Lux laser, it looks like. And I could have sworn you got some kind of bonus shield if you hit the middle there. Maybe they changed it. So you see you get the little shield there. And you can even fire it across the map. So you see something's going on top side. You know, you go bottom, fire. So I think it's a lot faster than an Ash Arrow. Let me actually look and see how that compares just really quickly to Ash, because that's a very similar type of thing. How fast is Ash Arrow? 1600. Okay, so it's 25% faster than Ash Arrow, but it's not instant. Like, kind of, it made it look like it was almost instant right there. So it still is going to take some time to travel over there. So I would say you do not want to fire cross map most of the time. Similar to an Ash Arrow, you want to hold on to that so that you have threat for your own all-ins in lane. So I wouldn't just fire that whenever you want. Okay, so a couple other things to keep in mind when we're talking about her stats here are that her AP ratios are pretty terrible. I was hoping they would come in a bit more than that. Nothing over here in her passive is affected by AP. And then the shielding is really, really low on AP. So it's only a 0.25%. So even if you're healing yourself and an ally, it's still only a 0.5. So that's just like abysmally low AP. And then the Dawning Shadow's only 40% also. Now, yes, it is going to hit multiple people, but it's still pretty terrible. Now, you do get some, like, your AP does affect your damage on some things. So, like, your ult, it does, but it does not affect your damage on Piercing Darkness. So, it's very, very limited damage effect on the AP. It obviously doesn't affect your auto attacks. And then it's also very limited in terms of your healing. So I think that AP overall is a pretty bad stat on her, which is a shame because I was thinking like maybe Athene's would be really good because obviously you could charge up Athene's with just like your auto attacks and your Q and things like that, and that would, you know, add a lot of extra healing to your Q. But the fact that AP seems so terrible on her and mana regen seems so terrible on her, that kind of makes me think that you don't want to get that item. So let's talk about items here really quickly then, since I've already mentioned that. So we'll go a little bit out of order and talk about items since I already brought it up, and then we'll talk about runes at the end here. But yeah, so I think your stat priority then is going to be bonus AD, because you get plus 20% of your bonus AD on your autos because of Absolution. And then your Piercing Dart, like your ratios are just way better with AD. So you've got the 50% here, and it also affects your shield. So it does affect your damage and your healing. And then a okay amount here with 70, and then on your ult, a pretty good amount with 100%. So it looks like AD is your best option, and then obviously just auto attacks benefit from AD as well. And then attack speed, I think, is really good. Now, that affects how this delay works, which, I'm not really sure how that's going to happen. But you want fast attack speeds because you need to be able to land 2 hits to trigger this. You hit them once to get the mist on them, then you have to hit them again in order to trigger the bonus damage. And then, obviously, every time you auto-attack, you're also lowering the cooldown on Piercing Darkness. You can cast that more often. So, it seems like attacking quickly is going to be a really good thing on her. So, and she has like pretty good base attack speed at 68, which, you know, affects just how powerful the stat bonus attack speed works. So that's why bonus attack speed is really good on champions like Vayne, who have really high base attack speed, but then it's kind of not as good on Caitlyn because she has really low base attack speed, like 56 or something. So attack speed going to be really good. I think that CDR is also really good if you can get that on her because it interacts so well with Piercing Darkness, because then your base number is going to go down, but this still reduces it by 1 second. So that's a really powerful scaling opportunity there. Obviously, Curse the Black Mist, pretty long cooldown, so it's going to like CDR a lot. And then your ultimate, like super high impact, but 160-second base. So it's really going to like CDR. So CDR seems good. AP is still like okay. You know, as I mentioned, it's not amazing, but the fact that this stuff does hit multiple targets, you know, your ult can hit multiple targets, your Q can hit multiple targets, it's still going to be a stat that's like worth considering sometimes. And then Critical Strike is something that's like okay, but once again, you're losing a lot of value off of it because you're only getting a 30% benefit. However, you are getting a lot of bonus attack damage, so your crits will still be pretty valuable in that sense. And then the notes, that I mentioned in terms of itemization, you want to be able to get those mists triggered a lot, which means you need the attack speed. You want to be able to auto attack the mists that are on the ground, and then they're the little ghouls or whatever that are on the ground whenever they show up. And you want to be able to hit multiple enemies as fast as possible to trigger all of your passives on them. And then she has really low regen, so once again, anything that has regen on it's going to be a lot worse. That's Athene's Unholy Grail. Redemption is definitely going to be, pretty rough on her, because that has a lot of health regen and mana regen. The new Shirelia's is going to be pretty terrible on her, so trying to get Shirelia's to activate it while your Mist is active seems super powerful, seems really cool. Maybe people still try it, but the fact that you're getting virtually no value out of that regen is going to be rough. They may have specifically, given her terrible regen because they don't want you to get Shirelia's on her, the new Shirelia's, so maybe they thought of that. Reduced critical strike, like we mentioned before, and then you get the extra bonus attack speed, so I think that's really good. So what does that mean overall? I think that means probably the best build for supports are going to be the Energizer type of builds. So they are changing these. Now, once again, we'll see if this goes through on the PBE. But they are bringing back the Energizer builds, which makes me really happy because hopefully that's going to give ADCs a much earlier power spike. Much more early and powerful power spike. So what they're doing now is all Energized effects can stack once again. They nerfed that back earlier on in this season so that multiple Energizers can't stack. So before, you used to be able to get Rapid Fire Cannon and Static Shiv, and you had the ultra long range to trigger Static Shiv, and the Static Shiv also, all of the bolts applied the bonus damage from the Rapid Fire in addition to the static damage. So that's really nice, but they took that away. So now, the damage did not stack, but some of the unique effects did still stack, so it was just really confusing, and it ended up nerfing the Energizer builds a lot, where you just get, in the past, you'd get Fleet, and then you'd go Infinity Edge, Rapid Fire Cannon, Static Shiv. That was the build, all throughout Season 7, until they nerfed it out. Sorry, it's a little bit of extra energy here, because I'm really tired, but I'm trying to get this content out here for you. But they're changing it. So it's kind of it's a buff, but it's also kind of a nerf. So Rapid Fire Cannon, you get extra range on it, but the damage is always 50 right now instead of the 60 to 140, and it no longer increases your Energizer speed, so you no longer get 25% extra stuff, but you can get up to 200 range. So obviously that would be very good on Senna. Now, one thing to keep in mind, though, is remember you need 2 attacks on somebody, not just 1, 2, in order to trigger her Mist passive. So getting this one shot off, rapid fire on somebody from far away, it is good, but you're probably not going to be able to follow up with that Mist, because it has to be autos. You can't just attack them with rapid fire and then also hit them with your Q. The Q does not trigger Mist. It has to be your autos. And remember, like it said there, having the rapid fire passive ready to go with Energize does not increase the range of your Q. So, it's okay. But I would say this is probably a net nerf on rapid fire overall. However, a really big buff on Static Shiv. Now this, I think, is going to be a paradigm shift, right? This is going to be a meta shifting item, because now it does 140 bonus damage immediately. It's not based on your level, which is huge. It used to do 60 at early levels and then scale up to 140. Now it just does a flat 140 damage to all 5 targets, and all energized attacks chain to these targets. So I believe they all do extra damage. So if you have a Static Shiv and then you get an extra Kerchice Shard for 50 extra damage, I think that would be 190 bonus damage to everybody. All 5 of those things. I believe that it could work out differently than that, but that's how I'm understanding it, is that anything that's energized is going to still give you that. Because it says they stack now. So if this is the case, I think this is going to probably be the go-to item on Senna early on, or support Senna rather, because it's 2,600, which is expensive, but it's still like kind of affordable. You know, it's not crazy. It's cheaper than Lethality. Lethality's 3,000 or 2,900, I believe, for like something like Dustblade. But so it's going to be cheaper than that, and you get attack speed, movement speed's always really good. And you get that huge amount of burst damage. And the fact that you can trigger it from long range with your autos is nice. And guess what? This counts as an on-hit effect. As it says, under Senna's thing here, that Kerchise Shard counts as an on-hit effect. So if we look at... I'm trying to remember where it said that. On-hit effects. So yeah, if you hover this, it says right there, Kerchise Shard counts as an on-hit effect. So that means that your Q will trigger that. So if you Q, like that really long-range Q, if you Q down a minion wave, you can actually hit the person on the back line pretty far away, and it's going to trigger Static Shiv. I believe it'll trigger Static Shiv. It will trigger Kerchise Shard for the extra 50 damage, but if it triggers that, if it triggers Kerchise, I assume it probably triggers Static Shiv. So we'll see. Energize attacks gain 140 bonus magic damage, and they chain to 5 different targets. So yeah, that's going to be massive when you're pushing people in and you're using that Q. Remember, you can like use your Q through their tower too if you want to, if you don't have a minion around. So you're using that Q to harass. That's going to be a lot of extra damage, especially if you chain this together. If you go Static Shiv first and then you get an extra Kerchise and you build that into either Stormrazor or Rapid Fire, then that's a lot of poke. That's 290 extra damage that's poke in addition to your Q damage. So they might have to nerf that. If all of that works the way that it says it works, that could be really OP. So we'll see if that actually hits the live servers or not. But that looks really strong on her. In addition to just giving you a lot of wave clear, giving you priorities, you can go ward more, you can go roam more, you know, and just pushing the minions in, pressuring towers faster. You know, that it's all good. It's a very, very good item, I think. And so it would be nice on Senna as well. Now, yes, you are losing value on the critical strike, but you are gaining attack speed, which is a really high priority stat. And you're just getting so much freaking damage off of it. And you can trigger it, I believe, off of your Q. That I think that's probably what you want to get. Stormrazor. Now, they're actually making Stormrazor really good. And I looked at the math on this thing. I don't think I have calculator pulled up right now, but it was actually over 100% efficient with this new buff. So it's going to give 50 attack damage, 25 critical strike, and 30% attack speed. And this is what gives you 50 bonus magic damage on hit, so like the Kerchise, but it also it's also going to speed up energize effects slow by 140. I thought... Yeah, it gives you stuff energizes 35% faster. So I don't think they've changed that on here yet. But it's basically they're giving the old rapid fire here. So this would be a good follow-up 1-2 punch where you go Static Shiv first to make sure that you're getting that 2,600 like reasonable power spike item. Now remember also, you don't have to buy and upgrade your support items anymore. So that's going to save you early on an extra 500 gold. So, you know, 2,600 is really expensive by today's standards, but you're really going to get that for closer to 2,100 in the future. So that's pretty nice. And obviously you're going to be able to proc the gold generation off of Spell Thieves quite a lot because you've got really high range. So it's going to be easy to proc that. So 35% faster generation on your Electrocute, and you're adding an extra 50 damage on the Static Shiv. So that's a really awesome combo. And if you get another Kerchise after that, you get an additional 50 damage. So if you build another Kerchise working towards Rapid Fire, then you're getting the, whatever it was, 190 or something off of Static. 140 off of Static. and then an additional 50 off of Storm Razor, and then an additional 50 off of an extra Kerchai Shard is going to, you know, take that up to 240 damage. Now, it is worth noting here with Static that this can no longer crit. So that's definitely something that kind of sucks, especially with all of the extra crit that Senna is going to get. This can't crit anymore, I believe. Unless they left that text out, it looks like it doesn't crit anymore. So, you know, the fact that you could have had 100% crit, maybe not 100%, but like 75% chance crit off of her passive and just a couple of items, you know, means this is not going to be as good like really late game once you get a lot of crit items. But nevertheless, as a first starting item, you can't really complain about 140 AoE damage. It's like guaranteed that you can trigger for like 1,300 units away that can hit like 5 targets. I mean, rumor on the streets, that's pretty good. So yes, it's going to be weaker later, but it's still pretty good early. And then this just has a lot of stuff that you want. You know, it's got the attack damage, it's got the attack speed. The critical strike is kind of, you know, take it or leave it, but still can be pretty good. And I just thought of something. The Q hitting people. There's no way that crits, right? They take on hit effects. That's not the same as critting. Critting, yeah, on hit effects do not apply. So crit is not an on hit effect because like Ezreal's Q can't crit. So okay, never mind. I was just thinking, there's no way that crits. That'd be OP as hell. So no, it does not crit. Okay, but anyway, so I think Static Shiv and a Storm Razor is probably going to be your best as support. It's what it's looking like right now. And then after that, you can kind of see maybe like Rapid Fire Cannon is another 2,600 option. Another option would be Hurricane. But yeah, if you just really want the maximum like poke burst damage off of the Static Shiv Lightning, I think these three would be pretty good. And with that, like maybe you go for the Fleet Footwork so that you get the extra healing off of it as well. And I think that's sort of one set of items you could try to work towards. Realistically, on a support budget, you're probably not going to get much further than this. But in a really long game, maybe you will. So that could be pretty good. Could be pretty good. Another option would be kind of a Hurricane build. So once again, I think that starting off with one of those like 2,600 gold items is probably where you want to be because it's just a lot cheaper than the bigger items. You don't have a lot of the gold generation that someone like Pyke has. So trying to get something like Duskblade or Ghostblade could work, but I guess we can go ahead and mention Duskblade here really quickly. Duskblade is nice, I think, because obviously with your Curse of the Black Mist, you can auto attack people like someone once and then go invisible again and then auto attack them again and get like double Duskblade procs. You might even be able to get a triple. Because it says you recloak after 1.5 seconds, and this lasts for 6 seconds. So if you cloak immediately, auto attack, recloak, auto attack, you know, recloak, auto attack, I think you could get off maybe 3 Duskblade procs. So that would obviously be super strong. So maybe that's a reason to get Duskblade. But as far as like the lethality goes, you know, Curse the Black Mist obviously doesn't do any damage. This does do physical damage, so lethality would apply to this. It would apply to your Q, and it would apply to your Dawning Shadow. So it's pretty good. They are reworking the Duskblade items, so we'll have to see how that works. But Duskblade might be worth it. I'm not sure if Ghostblade will be worth it or not. Like the movement speed is pretty nice. You know, my main concern is just those items are so expensive. They don't give you any attack speed. And they are very expensive, you know, for someone who doesn't get the extra money off of Pyke. Like I said before, it's a lot. Because if you're thinking most supports are going to be getting a lot of their items, like their Athenes, their Ardent Sensors, all that stuff for 2,100 to 2,300, and you're going to have to be spending 2,900 on items, you have the potential to fall really far behind. So I'm not sure about that build, but maybe. I mean, Duskblade is something. You could just get Duskblade as a standalone item. I guess you could just rush, like, maybe Static Shiv and then Duskblade. Static Magic. I think it's magic damage, right? Yeah, it's magic damage, so it does not benefit from lethality. That's probably by design, like on purpose. So that's kind of some anti-synergy there. We'll see. But yeah, the fact that you can go invisible and then attack again with Dustblade several times could be really good. And of course, you get the sweeper effect too, like the extra free. I think they might be getting rid of that on the PBE. But either way, it could do some extra damage for you. So that could be nice. Give you some nice extra burst damage. So Dustblade, jury's out on that. We'll see how some of these new items show up. There's a new item that's this Sanguine Blade, for like 300 or 3,000. I don't think that one's that good, though, because you're going to be close to allies in the lane, so that one probably not so much, but maybe Dustblade, maybe Ghostblade. I think they're nerfing them a little bit. But I think that I just think you have to go static. Like, this thing's just nutty. And if you already have static, you might as well get Stormrazor. So I still think this is going to be the optimal build, but maybe a Dustblade sneaks in there somewhere. If you do Dustblade, you'd probably want to do it early. Because I think the trading in the laning phase with the going invisible with the mist and auto attacking people a lot, I think that's where it's going to be really the best. So we'll see. Another build that you could go is you could rush Hurricane early so that each one of your bolts, I believe, once again, all this is kind of speculative, but I believe your bolts apply all on hits, including your passive. So in a team fight scenario, you could be triggering your passive on multiple people multiple times. The problem is you have to hit people like twice to get the mist procs. And how often are you going to be having 5v5 fights? I don't know. It does give some nice wave clear as well. I don't think that Hurricane is getting touched here. It's just the Static Shiv, Stormrazor, and Rapid Fire. So you could get Hurricane early. It would apply to multiple bolts, which can be good. It just depends on how much you're going to be team fighting. Now, obviously, Hurricane starts getting really good when you have Blather and King. And Blather and King is a good item on Senna, I believe, because it's got everything you want. It's got attack speed, it's got attack damage, and then it has the 8% of the target's current health gets hit. So I think this is pretty good with her, and it gives you a little bit of extra kiting too, gives you a little bit of extra sustain. So it does not have Energizer scaling, and it doesn't have crit scaling. The fact that it doesn't have crit is fine because crit doesn't scale that well on her, as we've mentioned before. You lose a lot of value on that, so you're not really missing the crit as much as some other ADs. However, it does not have the Energizer proc, which I think is going to be super powerful if those buffs actually go through onto the live server. So we'll see. However, it does have a really strong interaction with Hurricane, because every bolt on Hurricane also triggers Blather and King. So, you might see a Blather and King into Hurricane into Infinity Edge type of build. I think that would probably more likely be a build for an 80 carry. I could see 80 carries also rushing Static Shiv into either Stormrazor or Infinity Edge also, though. So, I think this is probably too expensive for a support. Like, that build right there is too expensive. So, like I said, I would probably stick with the Energizer builds just because a lot of those items are like 2,600 gold, and that's just a lot more affordable than having to go into, especially this upper range here where you're getting into like the 3,300, 3,400 range. That's like ultra expensive for a support. So, that's what I would, that's how I would go with it. So, I would say Static Shiv, Stormrazor right now, just as a guess at what would probably be optimal. Although, once again, that could change a little bit. Maybe, I think Rapid Fire is still going to be weaker than Static after those changes. Maybe it's Dustblade. Maybe you go Dustblade, Static. I don't know, but these two right here look like they're pretty good. That would also give you a defensive option if you want to get something like Phantom Dancer eventually. That's another relatively cheap item that gives you crit. Okay. As far as runes go, the last little bit here, and then we'll go ahead and round this out. I think Halo Blades is probably going to be the best, and the reason is, remember, you want multiple hits on the same target as fast as possible, so you get that mist proc. So this allows you to go up, auto-attack, and then just immediately auto-auto. And remember, the faster you auto, the more that you reapply the movement speed on your passive. So if you're attacking really quickly, you get to keep this bonus movement speed for even longer. And remember that the faster you throw those autos out, the faster that your Piercing Darkness comes off cooldown. So I think starting a trade would look something like use your Piercing Darkness to open them up with like a Static Shiv proc or something like that, Kerchise proc, chunk them out a little bit, and then walk in and then do your Hail of Blades, 3 really quick attacks. That will trigger your Mist for the bonus damage. It'll also lower the cooldown on your Piercing Darkness by 3 seconds. And then you can just back up and retreat unless they're really low and you go for the kill. But that would be like a standard, like pretty good trade, I think. So we'll see. I mean, you could also just start opening up on them with autos and then Piercing Darkness after they hit you so that you get the heal off. But I think that opens you up to a lot of different potential opportunities. And I just like that just because it puts out really high like front-end damage and is going to allow you to trigger your Mist really quickly. So that's why I think that Hail of Blades is probably the best way to go. And then Taste of Blood, obviously for someone with the kind of range that she has, is going to be really nice. And it's 20% of your bonus AD. Obviously, you're getting a lot of extra bonus AD from your passive. So I think that's going to be really strong. And then probably just Ghost Poro. It's very easy to trigger to get some extra attack damage. And then, you've got some options over here. You could do Ravenous Hunter. That would just double down and give you even more sustain on your Q in the laning phase. So that could be very good. And it's the damage dealt by your abilities on hit effects and items. So that would include Static Shiv as well. So maybe Ravenous Hunter. I think I'm going to change my mind on that. You might want to do Ravenous Hunter. I forgot that it triggers on Static Shiv. So yeah, I think Ravenous Hunter would be the way to go there. Because now, it's not going to give you the full value. It's only like a third of the benefit, I think. Or is it full value? I'm not sure. Either way, a lot of these are pretty good. So Ravenous Hunter, if you want the Supreme Sustain to go for those big trades in lane, which I think, because it triggers off a Static Shiv, I think that's where you want to go. Relentless Hunter, just really good mobility around the map. And then Ultimate Hunter, you do have a super powerful ultimate, and you can trigger it on multiple. You can get stacks really quickly by shooting it across the map if you see good opportunities. So that could work really well. And then after that, it's kind of up to you. I think Mana Flow is going to be really important because, once again, your mana regen is awful. So just getting more flat mana, getting that 250 flat, and the 1% regen of your missing mana, I think is going to be really strong. And then having Absolute Focus is very good, especially if you're going to go for the double sustain with Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter, and obviously your Q sustains you as well. I think you'll be able to stay over 70% a lot of the time, and so that's just going to give you a nice little chunk of extra bonus attack damage there. The other build that I think could work out pretty well is Fleet. Obviously, classic Energizer build is going to give you lots of really good sustain, scales very well with bonus attack damage. You get access to Triumph. If you want to go for double healing with Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter, you could actually go for Overheal if you want to, which could be pretty decent. Triumph is always going to be pretty strong as well. And then probably Alacrity for more attack speed, although, once again, you could just go triple healing if you want with Legend Bloodline in addition to Ravenous and Taste of Blood if you really want to put the pressure on in lane. But probably Alacrity most of the time, and then just Coup de Grace just to finish people off. And then I do think that Taste of Blood Ravenous is where you want to be, so you can walk up and take those trades more aggressively. It is possible you could go for something like Absolute Focus, Gathering Storm if you want to scale. It kind of depends on how the meta shakes out. If we get longer games that are like 30 minutes or later, that's going to become a more attractive option. But a lot of games are super snowbally right now, and they probably will be in the preseason as well. So I'd probably stay away from Gathering Storm. And those would be the main ones that I would take. I would probably stick away. I know some people have been trying out like Airy. I just don't think it's worth. I don't think you're going to get enough AP. It's nice with the poke, but I just think that getting those multiple hits with Hail of Blades is going to be way, way more damage than Airy. I mean, Airy's giving you like 10 extra damage on an auto, but what if, imagine, if you just got 2 extra autos super fast? It's way, way more damage. So I think Hail of Blaze is going to be better. Although some of these are okay, like Mana Flow's all right. Absolute Focus is all right. I just I just think Aerie is a little too weak. And then Grasp is, for range champions, is probably not where you want to be. Glacial Augment is interesting, but the fact that she's so bad with AP means you probably don't want to be doing Twin Shadows or GLP or anything like that, so you probably don't want to go that either. But yeah, anyways, that's going to be it. We'll try to keep this under an hour, so thank you very much. Let me know if you have any questions or comments or any really cool things you figured out about Senna in the chat. Come by, drop by the stream, hang out with us, ask us some more questions if you want. Starts around 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every night, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.